The day I signed those mortgage papers was one of the best days of my life. My name is Emily, and at 30 years old, I finally had my own place, away from my parents' constant criticism and my sister Melissa's never-ending drama. But the real cherry on top was what I did the very next weekend. I adopted Buddy, a golden Labrador with soulful brown eyes that melted my heart the moment I saw him at the shelter. My parents had always shut down my pleas for a dog with the same excuse. Dogs are dirty, they smell, and they ruin furniture. No matter how much I begged or promised to take care of everything myself, the answer was always a firm no. So instead, I channeled my love for animals into volunteering, spending every Saturday throughout high school walking dogs and cleaning kennels at the local shelter. Now, watching Buddy explore my new apartment, his new home, I felt a sense of completion I'd never experienced before. He sniffed every corner, his tail wagging enthusiastically as he investigated his surroundings. Within days, we settled into a routine: morning walks before work, evening training sessions, and weekend adventures at the dog park. I enrolled him in professional training classes right away, not because he was badly behaved, but because I wanted to give him the best life possible. "You've got yourself a smart one here," his trainer, Mark, told me after the first session. "Quick learner, eager to please." I beamed with pride. Yeah, he's pretty amazing. 3 weeks after bringing Buddy home, I decided it was time to introduce him to my family. I was nervous but hopeful that they'd see how well-behaved and loving he was. Maybe they'd even understand why I'd wanted a dog all these years. The moment I walked through my parents' front door with Buddy on his leash, I knew it was a mistake. My mom's face scrunched up like she'd smelled something rotten. My dad crossed his arms defensively, and Melissa, my 25-year-old sister, who still lived at home, rolled her eyes dramatically. "You actually brought it inside," Mom said, stepping back as if Buddy might attack her designer shoes at any moment. "His name is Buddy, and yes, I brought him inside. It's February and freezing outside," I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite the immediate tension. Dad glanced at Buddy, who was sitting perfectly at my side, just like we practiced. "Well, don't let it on the furniture. Your mother just had the couches cleaned." "He won't," I assured them. "He's very well trained." I gave Buddy a gentle pat. He looked up at me with those trusting eyes, completely unaware of the cold reception he was receiving. We moved to the kitchen, where Mom had prepared lunch. Buddy lay quietly under the table near my feet as we ate, not making a sound. "So, Melissa," Mom started, her voice immediately warming, "tell Emily about your promotion." Melissa straightened up, her face brightening. "Yeah, my boss practically guaranteed I'll get it. Just a couple more weeks, and I'll finally be able to afford my own place. A place where I can live however I want without constantly having to check with Mom and Dad about everything." The irony wasn't lost on me. She complained about our parents' control while still living under their roof and following their rules at 25. "Well, we're very proud of you," Dad said, beaming at her. Then, as if remembering I was there too, he added, "Emily's doing well with her mortgage payments, right?" Before I could answer, I felt Buddy shift under the table. Melissa let out a dramatic yelp. It touched me. "Get it away," she shrieked, pushing her chair back. "He just wanted to say hello," I explained, gently guiding Buddy back to my side. "He's friendly." Mom shook her head firmly. "Emily, I think it's best if you don't bring the dog when you visit in the future. Your sister's clearly uncomfortable, and frankly, so are we." I looked around the table at their disapproving faces, feeling a familiar disappointment settle in my chest. Nothing had changed. I was still the odd one out in this family, and now Buddy was too. "We should get going," I said, standing up abruptly. "I have some errands to run before evening." As I drove home with Buddy sitting calmly in the passenger seat, I realized something had shifted. For years, I had tried to please my parents, to fit into their expectations. But now, with my own home and Buddy by my side, I finally had the freedom to live on my own terms. "Just you and me, Buddy," I said, reaching over to scratch behind his ears. "And honestly, that's all I need." Over the next few months, my visits to my parents' house became less frequent. When I did go, it was only when my friend Tara could watch Buddy for a few hours. Every time, the conversation inevitably turned to Melissa, her career, her plans, her dreams. It was always the same script, with me playing the role of supportive older sister while feeling increasingly disconnected from my family. During one such visit, Melissa pushed past me in the hallway, her face pinched with frustration. "Promotion fell through," she muttered. "Boss said maybe next quarter." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "These things happen. There'll be other opportunities." She leaned against the wall, her eyes drifting to my car keys in my hand. "You're leaving already? You just got here." "I need to get back to Buddy. Tara has plans tonight." Melissa scoffed. "That dog. You act like it's your child or something." "He's family to me," I said simply. She shook her head, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're lucky, you know that. Your own place, making your own rules. Must be nice." I didn't know what to say to that. It was nice, but it wasn't luck. It was the result of years of saving, planning, and working hard, things Melissa never seemed interested in doing. Life settled into a comfortable routine with Buddy, morning walks, work at the marketing firm, and his excited greeting when I returned home. Our weekends were filled with dog park visits and lazy evenings together. Then, on a Tuesday, my boss called me into her office. "Emily, I have an opportunity for you," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "We're opening a new branch in Colorado, and we need someone to go set it up. 2 months on site to train the new team." I scanned the details. The assignment looked challenging but exciting. "This would be a significant step up in your career path," she continued. "If you handle this well, we're looking at a promotion when you return." "I need to figure out a few things, but I want this opportunity," I told my boss. "Can I give you a definite answer tomorrow?" That evening, I researched pet hotels, but the thought of Buddy staying in a kennel for 2 months broke my heart. He'd been in a shelter before. I couldn't bear for him to feel abandoned again. The next day, there was a knock at my door. Melissa stood in the hallway, shifting uncomfortably. "Mom said you weren't answering her calls, so she sent me to check on you." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Buddy trotted over to greet her, and she absent-mindedly pushed him away when he tried to sniff her hand. "Why are there suitcases out?" she asked, pointing to the luggage I'd pulled from storage. I explained about the business trip, watching her eyes light up with interest as I mentioned the potential promotion. "So what's the problem?" "Sounds like an amazing opportunity," she said, flopping down on my couch. "It's Buddy. I don't know where he'll stay while I'm gone." Melissa looked at Buddy, who had retreated to his bed. Something shifted in her expression. "I could watch him," she offered suddenly. I stared at her, not sure I'd heard correctly. "You? But you don't even like dogs." She shrugged. "I could stay here in your apartment. It would give me a break from Mom and Dad, and you wouldn't have to put him in some kennel." I hesitated. Something didn't feel right about this sudden change of heart, but I was running out of options. "There would be rules," I said firmly. "No parties. Keep the place clean. Buddy needs 2 walks a day. His food is measured out. I'll show you how much." "Got it?" "Got it," she interrupted, rolling her eyes. "I'm not a child, Emily." The day of my departure arrived too quickly. Melissa showed up with 2 large suitcases, looking more like she was moving in permanently than pet sitting. "Remember, Buddy's dinner is at 6, and he gets these dental treats before bed," I explained as I waited for my taxi. "And please, no parties." "Everything will be fine," Melissa said, pushing me toward the door. "Go be successful. Buddy and I will have a great time." I knelt down to hug Buddy, feeling a lump in my throat. "Be a good boy. I'll miss you so much." The taxi honked outside. I gave Buddy one last pat, shot Melissa a warning look, and left. The first week in Colorado was a whirlwind of meetings and setting up systems for the new office. Every night, I texted Melissa for updates on Buddy. She always replied with brief messages, "All good here," or "Buddy's fine. Stop worrying." Occasionally, I managed to video call her, and seeing Buddy's face on screen, hearing his excited bark when he recognized my voice, eased my anxiety. By the third week, I'd settled into a routine. The new team was enthusiastic, and I found myself enjoying the challenge. Melissa's updates continued, always positive, always brief. Then, late one evening, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Patel, my neighbor from the apartment next door. "Emily, dear, I hate to bother you," she began, her voice tight with annoyance, "but there's been quite a disturbance from your apartment these past few nights. Loud music, many people coming and going, and I'm concerned about your dog. He's been barking and crying a lot. It doesn't sound like he's happy." After thanking Mrs. Patel, I immediately called Melissa. She answered on the fourth ring, music pulsing in the background. "Hello," she shouted over the noise. "Melissa, what's going on? Turn down the music. We need to talk." The music grew fainter. "What's up? It's kind of late here." "I just got a call from my neighbor. She says you've been throwing parties and that Buddy is upset." "Your neighbor is exaggerating," Melissa scoffed. "We had a couple of friends over, that's all, and Buddy's fine." "Show me the apartment," I demanded. "Right now. Video call." The call switched to video. Red plastic cups littered my coffee table. There were people visible in the background, and the living room was a disaster zone. "Where's Buddy?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. The camera panned to show Buddy huddled in the corner of the kitchen, looking anxious. "Get everyone out, now, and take Buddy for a walk, a proper one." She rolled her eyes but nodded. "Fine. Everything will be back to normal tomorrow. Stop overreacting." I hung up and immediately called my parents, hoping they might talk some sense into Melissa. But as soon as I explained the situation, I realized my mistake. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill, Emily," my mother said dismissively. "Melissa's just enjoying a little freedom from us for once. She promised to take care of Buddy, and she's breaking that promise," I insisted. "It's just a dog," Dad chimed in. "And frankly, you've always been too uptight. No wonder you don't have many friends." The comparison stung. "Could you at least check on her? Make sure she's keeping the place decent." "You're being controlling," Mom said. "Melissa will be fine. Don't call us with these petty complaints again." They hung up, leaving me seething with frustration and worry. I should have known better than to expect their support. As always, Melissa was the golden child who could do no wrong. The days following my confrontation with Melissa blurred together. I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the constant worry about Buddy and my apartment. Every morning, I checked my phone for Melissa's daily text, always some version of "everything's fine," and tried to believe her. Over the weekend, I tried calling Melissa for a video chat. I missed Buddy terribly and needed to see his face, to hear him bark with excitement when he recognized my voice. "Sorry, can't talk right now. Walking Buddy." That was her text response to my call. I tried again that evening. "Making dinner. Call tomorrow." Tomorrow came, and again, excuses. By Monday, I was getting suspicious. This pattern continued for days. Whenever I tried to see Buddy on video, Melissa always had a reason why she couldn't show him. "Send me a picture of him," I texted her directly. Hours later, a photo arrived. Buddy lounging on my couch, looking happy and relaxed. I felt momentary relief until I took a closer look at the image. The light coming through the window suggested early morning, not evening when she sent it. I scrolled back through my text history, finding earlier photos she'd sent. There it was, the exact same image sent 3 weeks earlier. She was recycling old photos. My heart raced as panic set in. Why would she send old pictures unless something was wrong? With shaking hands, I dialed Mrs. Patel's number. "Hello, Emily," she answered, sounding less irritated than during our last conversation. "Hi, Mrs. Patel. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask about my dog. Have you seen Buddy recently? Heard him barking." There was a pause that made my blood run cold. "Now that you mention it, I haven't heard your dog in at least 2 weeks. The parties have continued, though. They're quieter now, but no barking. No dog sounds at all." I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing with terrible possibilities. Where was Buddy? What had Melissa done? I immediately texted my sister. "I need to see Buddy. Video call. Now." The message showed as read, but no response came. I called again, straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. "Melissa, I know you're lying about the photos. Call me back immediately and show me Buddy, or I swear I'll call the police and report him stolen." Hours passed with no response. I couldn't concentrate on work, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except Buddy. The night passed in a sleepless blur as I checked my phone every few minutes, hoping for a response that never came. By morning, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I called my boss, my fingers trembling as I dialed. "Jenna speaking." She answered on the second ring. "It's Emily. I need to go home," I blurted out. "It's an emergency." "Emily, what's wrong?" My boss sounded concerned. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, though I could hear my voice cracking. "I think something's happened to my dog. My sister won't answer my calls, and my neighbor hasn't seen or heard him in weeks. I understand you're worried, but we're in the middle of this project. Could you wait until the weekend?" she suggested gently. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me, tears threatening to spill. "I know this project is important for my career. I know I'm risking my promotion, but Buddy is family to me, and I can't sit here doing spreadsheets when he might be." I couldn't finish the sentence. There was a long pause on the other end, then a sigh. "I had a dog growing up. If I were in your shoes, I'd do the same thing." Another pause. "Go. You've already accomplished most of what we needed anyway. We can handle the rest." I booked the first flight I could find, packed my bags in a frenzy, and headed to the airport. By the time my plane landed, it was nearly midnight. I took a taxi straight to my apartment, rehearsing what I would say to Melissa. The fury that had been building inside me for the past 24 hours had crystallized into something cold and hard as the taxi pulled up to my building. I could hear music from the 3rd floor, my floor. Great, another party. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and marched up the stairs. The music grew louder as I approached my door. The scene that greeted me was exactly what I'd expected. About a dozen people sprawled across my living room, drinking from red cups. My furniture was pushed against the walls to make space for dancing. The air reeked of alcohol and cigarettes. I dropped my suitcase with a thud, walked to the speaker system, and yanked the plug from the wall. The sudden silence made everyone freeze and turn toward me. "Party's over," I announced, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. "Everyone out, now." There were confused murmurs, but something in my expression must have conveyed that I wasn't to be argued with. People began gathering their things, filing past me with awkward apologies and averted gazes. Melissa emerged from the kitchen, her face registering shock when she saw me. "Emily, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Colorado." "Where's Buddy?" I demanded, ignoring her question. She glanced around nervously as the last of her guests left. He's not here right now." "I can see that," I said, stepping closer to her. "Where is he, Melissa?" Something in her expression changed. A flicker of vindictiveness crossed her face. "Fine. You want to know where your precious dog is? I got tired of him. He wouldn't stop barking whenever we had people over. He was ruining all my fun." My heart dropped. "What did you do?" "I took him to a shelter," she said, her voice cold. "He was a pain in the ass anyway." The world seemed to stop. I stared at my sister, this person I'd grown up with, now a complete stranger to me. In that moment, I hated her with an intensity that frightened me. "Get out," I whispered. "Pack your things and get out right now, or I swear I'll do something we'll both regret." The moment she was gone, I collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion and fear washing over me. Buddy was in a shelter somewhere, but which one? There were at least a dozen in the city. I pulled myself together and grabbed my phone. It was past midnight, far too late to call any shelters, but I could email them. I drafted a quick message describing Buddy, Golden Labrador, male, 3 years old, microchipped, with my contact information, and sent it to every shelter I could find online. Sleep was impossible. I spent the night cleaning up the mess from Melissa's party and trying not to cry every time I came across one of Buddy's toys. By morning, I was running on coffee and anxiety. I started calling shelters the moment they opened. The first 4 had no record of a dog matching Buddy's description. The 5th call changed everything. Yes, we did have a lab brought in about 2 weeks ago. The woman on the phone confirmed. A female said it was a stray she'd found, but he had a microchip. We've been trying to contact the owner, but the phone number listed goes straight to voicemail. My old number. I changed it 6 months ago and updated it everywhere, except, apparently, Buddy's microchip registry. "That's my dog," I said, my voice breaking. "His name is Buddy. I'm Emily Weber. I can come right now with proof of ownership." "We close at 5, the woman said kindly. "He'll be waiting for you." I thanked her profusely, grabbed my purse and car keys, and rushed out the door. The shelter was on the other side of town, a 30-minute drive that felt like hours. All I could think about was Buddy, scared, confused, wondering why I'd abandoned him. When I arrived, I practically ran to the front desk, identification and adoption papers in hand. The staff verified my information and led me to the kennel area, and there he was, curled up in the corner of a cage, looking smaller somehow. His coat had lost some of its shine, and he didn't immediately look up when we approached. "Buddy," I called softly. His head snapped up, ears perking. The moment of recognition, his eyes locking with mine, will stay with me forever. He jumped to his feet, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook, and let out a joyful bark that echoed through the shelter. The staff member opened the cage and Buddy bounded into my arms, licking my face, whimpering with happiness. I hugged him tightly, tears streaming down my face, whispering apologies he couldn't understand, but somehow seemed to forgive anyway. After completing the necessary paperwork to reclaim him, we walked out of the shelter together. Buddy stayed pressed against my leg the entire drive home, as if afraid I might disappear again if he lost contact. Back at the apartment, I gave him a thorough bath, checked him for any health issues, thankfully finding none, and fed him his favorite food. That night he slept in my bed, something I'd never allowed before, but rules seemed less important now than keeping him close. The next morning my phone rang. It was my mother. "Emily, we need to talk about what happened with Melissa," she began without preamble. "She's very upset." "She's upset." I laughed incredulously. "She abandoned my dog at a shelter and trashed my apartment." "Don't be so dramatic. It was just a silly dog, and she was only having a little fun with her friends," my mother said dismissively. "You need to apologize for throwing her out with nowhere to go." Beside me, Buddy rested his head on my lap, looking up with those trusting brown eyes that had kept him waiting for me at the shelter. This was the final straw. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not apologizing. Buddy is family to me, even if you don't understand that. And until Melissa takes responsibility for what she did, until you and Dad stop making excuses for her, I don't want to hear from any of you." My mother gasped. "You don't mean that? You'd choose a dog over your own family?" I'm choosing to surround myself with beings who respect me and who I can trust, I replied, surprising myself with my calmness. Right now, that's not you, Dad, or Melissa. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up before she could respond, my heart racing but my mind clearer than it had been in years. For so long, I had tried to meet my family's expectations, to be the daughter they wanted. But in that moment, I decided to be the person I needed to be, for myself and for Buddy. The following weeks weren't easy. My parents and Melissa called and texted repeatedly, alternating between guilt trips and angry accusations. I blocked their numbers. I needed space to heal, to rebuild the trust that had been shattered, not just between Buddy and me, but my trust in my own judgment. Work was a welcome distraction. My boss was understanding about my early return, and though I hadn't completed the full 2 months in Colorado, she was impressed with what I'd accomplished in the time I was there. The promotion we discussed came through, bringing with it a welcome salary increase that I immediately put toward a doggy daycare service for the days I couldn't work from home. Life settled into a new rhythm. One Saturday morning, while at the dog park, Buddy made friends with a German shepherd named Max. As Buddy and Max played, I struck up a conversation with Max's owner, David. We exchanged numbers before leaving the park, and soon regular dog park meetups turned into coffee dates, then dinner dates. David was easy to be with, kind, thoughtful, and he adored Buddy almost as much as I did. 6 months after the shelter incident, I received a letter from Melissa. It was an apology, not perfect, still with traces of justification, but sincere enough that I could see she'd done some reflecting. She acknowledged the pain she'd caused, not just to me but to Buddy. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just said she wanted me to know she understood what she'd done was wrong. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to process, to decide if I wanted to let her back into my life in any capacity. That decision didn't need to be rushed.